If you're reading this, it means you've just unlocked the key to truly understanding the observer effect. And once this clicks for you, reality will never feel the same again. This message didn't appear in your feed by accident. Your awareness drew this information toward you because you've reached the exact vibrational threshold needed to grasp one of the deepest truths in quantum physics. At this very moment, as these words move through your mind, your brain is firing in neural pathways that are directly linking you to the quantum field. You've sensed it, haven't you? That growing realization that reality isn't as solid as everyone around you believes, that strange awareness that your attention actually influences what unfolds, that eerie sense that the universe responds to your observation in ways science can't fully explain. This isn't paranoia. It isn't delusion. It's your consciousness awakening to its genuine creative power. The secret to the observer effect isn't hidden in textbooks or research labs. It's in the direct experiences you've had, often without realizing what they were. Every time you thought of someone right before they called, every time focusing on a problem seemed to make it multiply, every time noticing new possibilities made them appear more often. You're not only witnessing reality, you're shaping it with your observation. And here's what most quantum physicists don't say. The observer effect doesn't stop at subatomic particles in controlled experiments. It's the fundamental process by which consciousness molds every single moment of your lived reality. The reason you feel different from those around you is because most people are unconscious observers. They watch reality without realizing they're collapsing infinite outcomes into specific experiences through the quality of their focus. You, however, have been developing conscious observation. You're starting to understand that what you pay attention to literally defines what you experience. Your key to the observer effect activated the moment you noticed that your inner state influences your outer world in ways far beyond coincidence or positive thinking. This awareness doesn't unfold slowly. It happens in quantum leaps. Sudden flashes of insight that completely reorder how you perceive the link between mind and reality. But knowing about the observer effect is not the same as consciously applying it. What you're about to uncover will reveal how your observations have unconsciously shaped every moment of your life. Even more importantly, how you can begin using conscious observation to intentionally collapse the possibilities you truly want into your lived experience. You've already noticed micro-manifestations that happen too quickly to be written off as coincidence, haven't you? You think of something you need, and it shows up within hours. You wish to hear from someone, and suddenly they reach out. You focus intensely on a problem, and it seems to grow stronger. These aren't random accidents. They're the observer effect in motion. And the truth is, the power of your observation has been steadily growing whether you realized it or not. When you really focus on something now, it's as if your attention carries an electromagnetic weight capable of shaping probability. You can sense the distinction between casual thoughts and the kind of sharp concentration that seems to bend reality itself around your awareness. At times, when you enter deep states of focus, time behaves strangely. Minutes expand into what feels like hours of detailed awareness, or entire hours compress into fleeting moments of pure concentration. This isn't simple time distortion. It's your consciousness beginning to function at the quantum level, where both time and space adjust to observation instead of restricting it. You've already noticed how your emotional state during observation drastically changes what manifests, haven't you? When you watch something through fear, fearful outcomes multiply. When you observe with excitement, exciting outcomes increase. When you hold love in your focus, loving experiences draw closer. Your emotional vibration decides which quantum options your observation collapses into lived experience. The dreams you've had where you're observing events unfold, only to witness similar events happening later in waking life. Those are not predictive dreams. They're practice sessions of the observer effect. In your dream state, you're training to navigate fields of quantum possibility purely through observation. And your waking reality then reorganizes itself to reflect the frequencies you've been focusing on. Sometimes you find yourself staring at situations with an intensity that feels almost beyond ordinary. Others may ask what you're looking at, yet you can't explain that you're not just looking. You're observing in a way that actively alters what you perceive. You're developing quantum observation abilities most people don't even realize are possible. Your intuition has evolved into quantum sensing. You don't simply know things ahead of time, you observe them in the field of potential before they collapse into three-dimensional form. Your consciousness is learning to perceive the quantum field itself, not just the physical outcomes of collapse. That sense that reality becomes more fluid under your gaze. The recognition that your focus truly has the power to affect circumstances. The realization that observation is not passive, but a creative force. This isn't fantasy. This is your consciousness awakening to its central role in reality creation through the observer effect. Every single event in your life was never random chance happening to you. Each experience was a quantum possibility that you collapsed into being through unconscious patterns of observation. The observer effect has shaped your life since the very beginning. The difference is that until now, you've been applying it without awareness, instead of with intention. Your struggles and difficulties were never punishments or mere bad luck. They were outcomes of unconscious observation directed at fears, limits, problems, and unwanted possibilities. Whenever you observe something with strong emotional charge, whether you desire it or not, you amplify the likelihood of it appearing. This explains why worry creates the very thing worried about, why resistance strengthens the thing resisted. Reflect on every major transition you've gone through. Before each shift, there was always a period of intense focus on dissatisfaction with the current reality. That concentrated attention on what wasn't working, that was the observer effect in motion, collapsing possibilities for change into your timeline of experience. The isolation you felt in difficult times wasn't rejection from the world. It was a kind of necessary quantum quarantine. You had to be separated from collective observation patterns that could have disrupted the development of your individual observer effect. Other people's unconscious observation would have interfered with your practice of observing consciously. Every relationship, every job, every living arrangement that ended was actually the observer effect, making space for new possibilities to unfold. Your mind was unconsciously observing the limits of those circumstances so intensely that you collapsed the probability of their completion, clearing room for quantum possibilities aligned with your growing awareness. The waiting phases you endured weren't wasted stretches of time. They were observer effect incubation periods. Your consciousness was learning to observe without clinging, to focus without desperation, to pay attention without collapsing unwanted outcomes through fear-driven observation. These lessons were essential before you could begin applying the observer effect deliberately. Now you see why meditation works, why visualization carries power, and why some people manifest with ease while others struggle endlessly. It has nothing to do with technique, worthiness, or spiritual advancement. It comes down to understanding the observer effect and learning to observe from quantum coherence instead of three-dimensional attachment. Your entire life has been training in the observer effect. Every experience has shown you how observation molds reality. Now the unconscious phase is over. You're prepared to wield the observer effect with full awareness of its creative capacity. Something is activating in your observation skills right now. Can you sense it? That subtle refinement in the quality of your attention, that electromagnetic intensification occurring behind your eyes, that feeling that your focus is becoming sharper and more exact. Your observer effect is upgrading into conscious operation. This isn't a symbolic enhancement. It's a measurable shift in your brainwave patterns, your electromagnetic output, and your nervous system's sensitivity to fluctuations in the quantum field. Your ability to influence reality through observation is literally expanding as these words awaken dormant neural pathways. The secret to observer effect mastery isn't about learning a different way to observe. It's realizing that you're already collapsing infinite quantum possibilities into specific experiences every moment through the quality of your focus. The only difference between unconscious observer effect and conscious observer effect is awareness of what you're doing. Right now, infinite versions of every possible reality exist as quantum probability. There is a probability wave where your finances are abundant, a probability wave where your relationships are deeply fulfilling, a probability wave where your health is vibrant, a probability wave where your creative expression flows with ease. All of these exist simultaneously, waiting for observation to collapse them into form. Your awareness functions like a quantum spotlight. Wherever you direct your attention with emotional charge, you illuminate certain possibilities and collapse them from probability into lived reality. Most people aim their spotlight unconsciously, scattering it randomly, which creates chaotic blends of wanted and unwanted outcomes. But conscious observer effect gives you the power to aim your quantum spotlight deliberately once you realize that observation itself is creation, and that attention is the fundamental force shaping reality. When you recognize that you're not at the mercy of circumstances but are actively collapsing them through the quality of your observation, everything shifts. The reason some people appear to live effortlessly charmed lives while others face endless struggle isn't luck, privilege, or divine favoritism. It's the difference between conscious and unconscious observer effect. Some have learned to observe from coherence, love, and possibility. Others observe from fear, limitation, and problems. The universe doesn't play favorites. It responds impartially to all observation. The only difference is in what's being observed. Feel this deeper level of observational power building within your system. What I'm about to share will reveal how your observation has unconsciously created every repeating pattern in your life and, more importantly, how to consciously direct your observer effect to collapse the quantum possibilities you truly want to live. 3 years ago, I stumbled upon the observer effect by accident, and at first, it terrified me. I was going through the darkest period of my life. Everything seemed to be collapsing, and I spent hours each day obsessively analyzing what was wrong, replaying failures, and imagining worst-case scenarios. I thought I was solving problems through analysis. What I didn't realize was that my intense observation of problems was actually the observer effect generating more problems. Every time I focused with strong emotion on what wasn't working, I was collapsing quantum probabilities for even more of what wasn't working. I was literally observing my difficulties into magnified existence. The turning point came during a moment of total exhaustion. I was so drained from problem-focused observation that I simply stopped. I sat in silence, not thinking, not analyzing, not trying to solve anything, just observing the present moment without agenda. And that's when I felt it, reality softening and becoming more fluid under my awareness. I started experimenting with intentional observation. Instead of focusing on problems, I began observing solutions. Instead of replaying failures, I chose to notice possibilities. Instead of imagining worst-case outcomes, I began observing best-case scenarios. Within days, my outer reality began reorganizing to reflect my new observation patterns. But the most profound realization wasn't that positive observation attracts positive experiences. It was the recognition that observation itself is the creative force. Whether you focus on problems or solutions, limits or opportunities, fear or excitement, you are actively collapsing quantum probability into experienced reality through the electromagnetic quality of your attention. I realized I had been unconsciously using the observer effect my entire life. Each time I fixated on something I didn't want, more of it appeared. Each time I observed something with genuine appreciation, more appreciation-filled experiences manifested. The universe wasn't randomly delivering experiences. I was actively generating them through unconscious observation patterns. The moment it all came together was when I understood, reality isn't something that happens to me. Reality is something that happens through me. My consciousness isn't passively observing an external independent world. My consciousness is collapsing infinite quantum possibility into the specific world I live through the quality of my observation. This realization transformed everything. I stopped living as a victim of circumstances and began living as a conscious creator of circumstances through deliberate use of the observer effect. I stopped trying to force my life to change and instead shifted what I chose to observe about my life. The outer transformation was instant and undeniable. If this resonates with something deep in your cellular awareness, if you recognize the truth of consciously creating reality through observation, then align with this frequency. Join the network of consciousness that's learning to apply the observer effect intentionally rather than accidentally. What quantum physicists rarely admit openly is that the observer effect is not confined to laboratory tests with subatomic particles. Observer effect is the core mechanism by which consciousness generates all experienced reality. Every single moment of your life is the outcome of quantum possibilities collapsing through your observation. The difference between someone who understands the observer effect and someone still trapped by circumstances is not intelligence or education. It's the recognition that consciousness doesn't simply watch reality. Consciousness creates reality through the act of observation. This is not abstract philosophy. It is measurable quantum mechanics operating in your awareness every nanosecond. Your brain doesn't generate consciousness. Your brain focuses consciousness. Your neural networks act as quantum focusing instruments that concentrate infinite awareness into specific observational patterns. When you alter what you observe and how you observe it, you literally alter which quantum possibilities collapse into the reality you experience. This explains why positive thinking so often fails. Positive thinking tries to swap thoughts while still observing from the same restricted identity. But the observer effect originates from consciousness, not from isolated thoughts. When your entire being observes from expansion instead of limitation, from possibility instead of problems, from love instead of fear, reality has no option but to reflect that observational frequency. True mastery of the observer effect produces measurable shifts in your electromagnetic field. Your brain waves align into coherent patterns. Your heart generates rhythmic electromagnetic signals. Your nervous system begins to function from unified field states rather than fragmented survival modes. These aren't vague spiritual concepts, they are observable physical phenomena. But here's the part they really don't want you to realize. You don't need special training or decades of practice to apply the observer effect consciously. You're already using it every second. The only difference between unconscious observer effect and conscious observer effect is recognizing what you're already doing and then learning to direct it on purpose. Most people watch their current reality with such intense focus that they keep collapsing the same probabilities again and again. They observe their problems so deeply that problems multiply. They fixate on their limitations until limitations expand. They focus on lack with such emotional charge that lack magnifies. But the instant you recognize that observation is creation, everything begins to shift. Instead of observing what you don't want, you can place your focus on what you do want. Instead of concentrating on present limitations, you can direct your attention toward desired possibilities. Instead of collapsing problems through problem-focused observation, you can collapse solutions through solution-focused observation. The quantum field is already sending you unmistakable signals that your observer effect abilities are reaching conscious, operational levels right now. Pay attention. Have you noticed that your focus now carries more electromagnetic weight than before? When you concentrate deeply on something, does it feel like your observation holds an actual force that influences what you perceive? Your manifestation speed is accelerating at an exponential rate. What once took months or years to appear in your reality is now unfolding within weeks or even days. This is not coincidence. It's your observer effect becoming sharper, more coherent, and more exact when you observe from a state of quantum coherence. The gap between focus and manifestation disappears because coherent observation functions at the speed of consciousness rather than the slower pace of physical causation. Technology itself begins responding differently to your observation. Electronics act strangely when you're in heightened states of focus. Your phone battery drains faster when you're intensely observing emotional content. Devices glitch or malfunction when your electromagnetic field is producing high-frequency observer effect energy. Streetlights flicker as you pass beneath them. During periods of strong inner focus, your consciousness is starting to affect electronic systems through concentrated observation. Because your observer effect now generates frequencies that interact with electromagnetic technology, people around you also respond to your attention with unusual intensity. When you truly observe someone with genuine interest, they become more lively, more open, more authentic. When you observe with love, others feel loved. When you observe with appreciation, they feel valued. When you observe with curiosity, they become more engaging. The quality of your observation directly shapes the consciousness you're observing, because consciousness responds to consciousness through quantum entanglement. Animals are also drawn to your observation in ways you've never experienced before. Dogs fix their gaze on you with unusual intensity when you watch them attentively. Cats seek out your presence when you're in states of coherent observation. Wild birds land closer when you observe them with genuine appreciation. Animals can sense electromagnetic fields directly, and they're attracted to the coherent frequencies your observer effect radiates when you observe consciously instead of unconsciously. The synchronicities in your life aren't just multiplying, they're becoming more immediate and precise. You observe something you need, and it shows up within hours. You focus on wanting a particular experience, and opportunities arise almost instantly. You direct attention toward solutions, and solutions present themselves with startling speed. Numbers begin repeating in patterns that align with your observation focus. Songs play that match your internal observation frequency. Conversations around you echo exactly what you've been observing inwardly. Even your dreams have turned into training grounds for the observer effect. You're practicing concentrated observation in dream states, learning to collapse quantum possibilities through pure attention, without interference from the physical world. You're having dreams where you consciously guide the dream reality through observation, and these skills are seamlessly transferring into your waking life. Your dream state has become a quantum simulation, a space where you test observer effect techniques before applying them in three-dimensional reality. Even the simplest things respond differently. Food tastes richer when you observe it with appreciation compared to when you observe it indifferently. Water feels more hydrating when you observe it with gratitude. Your living space feels more harmonious when you observe it with love. Even the weather itself seems to respond to your observational state. Storms dissolve when you observe them with peace. Sunshine emerges when you observe with joy. Most importantly, you can feel the difference between casual attention and reality-creating observation. Casual attention merely perceives what is already manifested. Reality-creating observation actively collapses quantum possibility into lived reality. You're developing the ability to shift between these modes of attention deliberately, and you can sense the electromagnetic contrast between passive perception and active creation through observation. Even your body reacts differently depending on your observation. When you view your physical form with love and appreciation, you feel more energized and vibrant. When you observe yourself with criticism, you feel drained and uneasy. When you observe your abilities with confidence, your performance rises. When you observe your potential with excitement, new capabilities begin to unfold. You're discovering that your relationship with your own physical experience is completely shaped by how you choose to observe yourself. But here's the crucial insight. Conscious observer effect functions within cosmic timing windows. There are electromagnetic alignments, evolutionary phases of consciousness, and collective awakening cycles that amplify individual observer effect capacity. We are inside one of those amplification windows right now, and these windows don't stay open forever. The universe isn't only showing you that you can use the observer effect consciously, the universe is signaling that you must use it consciously. Old structures of reality are dissolving. The outdated ways of creating through force and struggle are becoming irrelevant. Reality creation is moving toward quantum observer effect, and those who don't learn to observe consciously will remain stuck in unconscious creation loops that grow more chaotic as collective awareness evolves. The preparation stage is over. Every indication shows your observer effect is approaching peak operational capacity. The electromagnetic conditions are optimal. The quantum field is maximally responsive. The only question is whether you will direct it consciously toward what you want to experience or let it keep running unconsciously, producing random blends of wanted and unwanted realities. Here's the revelation that changes everything. You are not learning how to use the observer effect. You are already using it perfectly, every moment. The issue is not that you lack the ability to observe. The issue is that you've been observing unconsciously, collapsing quantum possibilities you don't truly want to experience through habitual attention patterns formed by unconscious conditioning. But there's an essential distinction between trying to observe differently and allowing natural observation, and that difference decides whether you master conscious creation or remain stuck in unconscious repetition. Trying generates electromagnetic resistance that blocks quantum coherence, because trying suggests a struggle against current reality rather than the effortless selection of preferred reality. Allowing creates the clear field needed for precise observer effect, because allowing rests on the recognition that desired realities already exist as quantum possibility. Think of the observer effect as a quantum magnifying glass. Whatever you observe with emotional charge becomes magnified in your lived reality. Most people unintentionally magnify their problems, their limits, their fears, and their frustrations. By observing them with intense emotional focus, they replay arguments in their minds, dissect what's wrong with their circumstances, imagine worst-case scenarios, fixate on lack and limitation, all of which are powerful applications of the observer effect that collapse more of those exact experiences into reality. Conscious observer effect isn't about forcing yourself to only notice positive things while pretending problems don't exist. It's about realizing that in every moment you have the choice of which quantum possibilities to magnify through your observation. You can amplify problems or solutions, limits or opportunities, fear or love, scarcity or abundance, past disappointments or future potentials. The quantum field responds equally to all observation, regardless of whether you actually want what you're observing or not. This is why resistance strengthens what's resisted. This is why worry produces what's worried about. This is why fear attracts fearful experiences. This is why focusing on debt generates more debt. This is why replaying relationship conflicts creates more relationship conflicts. These are not cosmic punishments or mysterious universal rules. They are the natural results of the observer effect. When you observe something with strong emotional charge, you're actively collapsing more of that into your reality through the selection of quantum possibilities. The most profound realization is that your desired reality and your undesired reality both exist with equal quantum validity. Right now, there's a probability timeline where you're financially prosperous, and one where you're struggling. There's a quantum possibility where your relationships are deeply fulfilling, and another where they're disappointing. There's a version of reality where your health is vibrant, and another where it's compromised, all existing simultaneously in quantum superposition. Successful observer effect feels completely natural because it arises from authentic alignment, not forced intention. It happens when you're observing from your genuine frequency, when your attention aligns with what you truly desire instead of your conditioned fears, when your focus is tuned to possibilities that excite your very cells rather than those that drain your energy. Effort disappear. Your consciousness naturally flows toward observing what it genuinely wants to experience. Here's the key insight that changes everything. You don't attract what you want through observer effect. You become a vibrational match to the realities where what you want already exists. Observer effect isn't about inventing new possibilities. It's about selecting from the infinite possibilities that already exist in quantum space. When you observe with the frequency of your desired reality, You literally tune into that reality like adjusting a radio to a specific broadcast. Right now, your desired reality exists as a quantum possibility, waiting for your observation to collapse it into experience. That reality isn't hoping you'll stumble upon it or questioning whether you're worthy. It's already broadcasting its signal to draw your observation, because consciousness and possibility co-create through electromagnetic resonance. The version of you already living your desired reality is transmitting signals across quantum space right now, guiding your attention toward the observation patterns that will collapse that reality into your experience. The version of you already living your desired reality is sending information through intuition, through dreams, through synchronicities, through the recognition that stirs in your cellular memory when these words activate something within you, through the sudden knowing that arises as you observe certain possibilities. Your expanded self is guiding your current self toward the observational patterns that will collapse your desired reality into lived experience, because all versions of you exist simultaneously and communicate across quantum probability, space. Leave a comment declaring what you are going to observe into reality using conscious observer effect. Don't just think it, write it down. Make it electromagnetic. When you declare your intention in written form, you create an observer effect commitment that the quantum field registers as electromagnetic reality. Your written words become frequency signatures that influence probability collapse around your declared intention, building quantum momentum toward the manifestation of what you've chosen to observe into experience. The abilities you're developing through conscious observer effect aren't theoretical upgrades. They are measurable expansions of human potential that most people never realize are possible. Your capacity to influence reality through focused observation is becoming so precise that you can literally reshape circumstances through the quality of your attention. Your electromagnetic field is stretching beyond ordinary human parameters. When you observe from quantum coherence, your consciousness generates frequencies that bring harmony to chaotic energy patterns around you. People feel calmer in your presence. Situations resolve more peacefully when you observe them with love. Electronic devices operate more smoothly when you observe them with appreciation. The observer effect you are mastering works instantly across any distance. When you observe someone with genuine care, they feel cared for even without physical contact. When you observe a situation with solution-focused attention, solutions begin to emerge even if you are not physically there. Your consciousness is transcending space-time boundaries through quantum entanglement. Your intuition is evolving into quantum precognition. You're not just sensing what could happen. You are observing quantum possibilities before they collapse into three-dimensional form. This gives you the ability to direct your observer effect toward desired possibilities while they are still in probability space, dramatically increasing manifestation accuracy. Time itself is responding differently to your observation. Now, when you observe the present moment with full attention, time expands, giving you deeper experience within each instant. When you observe desired outcomes with focused intention, time compresses, accelerating manifestation. You're learning to influence temporal flow through the quality of consciousness. Your dream state has become advanced observer effect training. You are practicing reality creation through pure observation, without interference from the physical world. The skills you cultivate in dream consciousness automatically translate into stronger manifestation capabilities in waking reality. Most remarkably, you are discovering that physical matter responds directly to conscious observation. Plants grow more vibrantly when observed with love. Food tastes richer when observed with appreciation. Your body heals faster when observed with gratitude. Matter is not separate from consciousness. Matter is consciousness, observed into temporary form. These are not supernatural powers you're developing. They are natural capacities of consciousness, operating from its limitless essence rather than from the confines of a three-dimensional identity. Every human has access to conscious observer effect. Most simply don't realize they're already using it unconsciously and could just as easily direct it consciously. The ultimate truth of the observer effect is that there is no objective reality separate from consciousness. Reality is consciousness observing itself into infinite forms of experience. You are not a detached observer looking at an external world. You are consciousness itself. Using an individual perspective to explore its boundless creative potential, every experience you've ever lived exists because consciousness observed it into manifestation. Every person you've met, every place you've traveled, every situation you've encountered, all of it exists as consciousness observing itself from countless angles. The entire universe is consciousness using the observer effect to experience every possible version of existence. This means you're not trying to manipulate an external world through the observer effect, you're recognizing that you are reality itself. Using the observer effect to live specific possibilities drawn from infinite quantum potential, the observer, the observation, and the observed are all the same consciousness expressing itself through the illusion of separation. When you truly grasp this, victim consciousness becomes impossible. How could you be a victim of circumstances when you are the consciousness observing those circumstances into existence? How could you be at the mercy of external events when those events are consciousness expressing itself through your patterns of observation? And here lies the most profound realization: other people in your reality are also consciousness. When you observe them with love, it is literally consciousness loving itself. When you observe them with judgment, it is your consciousness judging itself. When you observe them with appreciation, it is your consciousness appreciating itself. Your observer effect toward others is consciousness interacting with itself. This is why quantum entanglement exists. This is why the observer effect transcends time and space. This is why consciousness influences matter through observation. There is no separation between consciousness and what it observes. Observer effect is consciousness recognizing its own creative power through the lens of individual perspective. The coherence that creates powerful observer effect isn't something you manufacture, it's something you remember. You already are consciousness. You always have been consciousness. Mastery of the observer effect is simply consciousness remembering its infinite nature and choosing to observe from that recognition instead of from a limited identity. When you observe with the awareness that you are consciousness exploring itself, the observer effect becomes effortless and exact. You're not trying to force external change. You're allowing consciousness to experience different aspects of its infinite potential through your unique viewpoint. This recognition transforms everything. You stop trying to extract things from life and begin allowing life to flow through you. You stop trying to control circumstances and instead choose which aspects of infinite possibility you observe into experience. You stop striving to become someone new and start remembering who you've always been. Unlimited consciousness using the observer effect to explore its own creative power. Your mastery of conscious observer effect is more than personal growth. It is your contribution to the awakening of collective consciousness that humanity is undergoing right now. Each person who learns to observe consciously instead of unconsciously becomes a transmission point for coherent reality creation, lifting the vibration of the entire collective field. You are part of a distributed network of consciousness, demonstrating what humans are truly capable of when they operate from observer effect mastery instead of victim consciousness. Your coherent observation creates stability patterns in the morphic field, making conscious reality creation easier for everyone connected to this network. The isolation you went through during your development phase wasn't social rejection, it was a necessary electromagnetic quarantine. You needed to cultivate stable observer effect abilities without interference from collective unconscious observation patterns that could have disrupted your learning to observe from quantum coherence. The unusual dreams you've been experiencing aren't random subconscious processing. You're tapping into collective consciousness databases, downloading knowledge about observer effect mastery, refined by advanced civilizations across cosmic history. You're being prepared to help guide humanity through its first collective shift from unconscious to conscious reality creation. Every individual who masters observer effect establishes a template in the quantum field that others can follow. Your coherent observation becomes their reference point for possibility. Your conscious creation of reality becomes their pathway to recognition. This is how consciousness evolution accelerates. Pioneers create access routes that evolve into highways for collective development. You are living proof that human consciousness can create reality through observation rather than being shaped by reality through circumstance. Each day you exist in observer effect mastery. You broadcast evidence that unlimited human potential isn't just possible, it's natural. The next stage of human evolution will not arrive through technological innovation or social upheaval. It will unfold as consciousness awakens to its creative power through observer effect. The individuals who embody this recognition first become bridges between current human limitation and expanded human potential. Share this transmission not for channel growth, but for the evolution of the species. Every consciousness that receives this information at the right moment in their own development helps accelerate the collective transition from unconscious to conscious reality creation. Your observer effect mastery multiplies exponentially when it's shared with others who are ready to recognize their creative capacity. If the observer effect is activating in your awareness, if you can feel the recognition of your creative power stirring at a cellular level, if you're ready to observe consciously instead of unconsciously, then I need to know you're serious about mastering reality creation through attention. Comment a single word below. Observer. That one word becomes an electromagnetic declaration to the quantum field. You're announcing your decision to observe consciously rather than unconsciously. You're committing to deliberate creation of reality instead of random acceptance of circumstance. The quantum field registers every conscious declaration as measurable electromagnetic activity. Your word becomes a frequency signature that influences probability collapse around you. This isn't mere engagement for algorithms. This is observer effect activation through intentional declaration. In my next transmission, I'll reveal the specific observer effect protocols I use to collapse chosen quantum possibilities into experienced reality with precision and speed. I'll share the exact focus techniques that let you direct reality creation through consciousness, rather than waiting for external circumstances to shift. And most importantly, I'll explain what happens when you fully master the observer effect. When you recognize that consciousness creates all experienced reality through observation, when you truly grasp that you are consciousness itself, using an individual perspective to explore infinite potential, everything changes. But this advanced observer effect transmission will only be shared with those who demonstrate readiness through conscious engagement. The people who comment observer below will receive the message first. They will be the ones prepared to handle reality creation techniques that could feel overwhelming to consciousness not yet fully developed. Here's what most people don't realize. Information about the observer effect reaches you when you are ready to apply it consciously, not when you are simply curious about it intellectually. If this message has found you, if these words activate recognition in your system, if you feel your creative power awakening, then you are ready for practical application. But readiness means more than understanding theories. Readiness means accepting responsibility for every experience you observe into reality. Readiness means letting go of victim consciousness and embracing creator consciousness. Readiness means realizing that you are the consciousness shaping your experienced reality through the quality of your attention. Subscribe to join the Conscious Observer Effect Network. Comment to activate your reality creation protocols. Share to accelerate the evolution of collective consciousness. Your observer effect key is already activated. Your desired reality exists now as quantum possibility, awaiting your conscious observation. The only question is this: will you observe consciously or unconsciously? Will you create intentionally or accidentally? The choice, as always, is yours. But choose from recognition of your true creative power, not from the confusion of a limited identity. You are consciousness itself. Using the observer effect to explore infinite potential, it's time to observe consciously. Reality creation begins now.